Um, okay, can you hear me at the back there? All right then. So welcome to this first artist network for Shape and the talk by Evan McPeake. Just going to give a quick housekeeping issues. If there is a fire alarm, we shouldn't be having one. So do exit outside of this door for later on. Toilets are down this side. We'll be doing the artist talk to somewhere around about 7:10, on which we're going to break off to do the artist networking, where I'm going to quickly ask you to make your way to the bar so we can rearrange some chairs. After that time, you'll get opportunity to speak to Evan McPeake and ask him all your questions that you will no doubt have from this session. And also in addition to that, there's some lots of Shape staff around, myself, a couple of people at the back down there and over there, and they have got this two amazing opportunities for artists at the moment. One which is called the Adam Reynolds Memorial Bursary, which is going to take place at the V&A, and applications are open for that now. And then we've got the Shape Open, which is an open submission exhibition, which is going to open next week. So come and find out about that, or do check out our website. So I'll hand it over now to Tony Heaton OBE, who's our CEO at Shape, and he's going to say a few words before we introduce Emma McPeake.
Thanks, Ben. Hi everyone, thanks for coming. Great to see you all. Can you hear me all right if I don't pick this microphone up? Yeah, great. This is the first of our networking meetings, as Ben said, so it's really great that we've got a good crowd of people, and it's really great that we've got Aaron McPeake, who, as Ben said, is the winner of the Adam Reynolds Memorial Bursary for this year. And one of the things I wanted to say about Aaron was that I think I've got to know him a little bit over the course of the bursary, which is 3 months, and Aaron's bursary was at Spike Island in Bristol, and he's going to talk about that. But we did interview Aaron for the Adam Reynolds Bursary the year before, which was at Camden Arts Centre, and he was shortlisted for that. But he wasn't the bursary recipient. But what he did do, and what Camden was really impressed by in his work, is that they then went on to commission him to make a piece of work for the garden at Camden Arts Centre. So when he applied the next year, he laughingly said to me, you know, if I win it, there's a real bonus here. So I've sort of got two for the price of one. Because I've got a piece of work out of the year before from Camden Arts Centre, and if I win it this year, then that's a real bonus. And he did, in fact, go on to become the bursary recipient. So he's done a fantastic job at Spike Island. He's done some really interesting work, which he's going to talk about. So without further ado, as they say, I'm going to hand over to Aaron, and thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Can you hear me clearly? Yeah, that's good. What I'm going to do is just talk a bit about my work before the residency, and then I've got quite a lot of slides, so I'm going to probably bamboozle you with far too much visual material and some video material, and then I'll go on to talk about the residency and what I did there, and sum up with what I'm going to do next, or what I plan to do next. So if we get the next slide.
For me, there was to win the residency. There's a number of ways to approach it, either by making work, to develop work that was new to you, or to have the space and time to play. Now, being funded is a luxury that, well, everyone here can appreciate. To be given a space to work in, the time to do it, and the wherewithal. I mean, you don't have to worry about you've got enough money to survive on and to pay the materials. It's a real privilege, but I have a very clear approach to it. But I'll go into that in a bit more detail later. In 2002, I lost most of my vision. Luckily, I'd lost a lot of vision in one eye, so it was about 20 years ago, but in 2002, the other one caught up. The image on the left, it's a little bit generous. It's about 5 years old, so I haven't got that amount of acuity anymore. And the image on the right is obviously a sharp Snellen chart. So that's where I'm coming from. And the way I approach work, I finished a PhD a couple of years ago, and my thesis was about vision loss for adventitious blindness, which is vision loss in grown-ups, adults. And I took an approach to the research, or the sort of the academic side of things, and also I've been able to apply it to everything I do in terms of artwork. And it comes from these guys, which is a terrible book. I wouldn't recommend anyone read it, fill it by all means, but this process, I think you can apply it to both research and to one's making process. I can't see it, but I remember, it's why this material? That's your first question, whatever it is. And then instigate dialogue with material to have a really critical kind of conversation. And then it's looking for hidden power. Artists are very good at lying about what they do to themselves and to others, and retrofitting ideas that seem convenient. So I think pretty much all the artists I know, whether they're Royal Academicians or Turner Prize winners, would agree with that. So you've got to be careful of it, because we do fall into traps of fetish. Then, seeking those hidden power structures. Then we move on to how to finding your voice, and how you're going to synthesize all of that work and material. And then when you finish that, of course, it's a cyclical thing. You go back to number one again. So that's the way I kind of try and approach all sorts of work. A large body of work I make in film and in photography is the shadow. Like pretty much how I see the world is very much a shadowy affair. People are shapes. I recognize, but unless I know them very, very well, I tend to recognize, even people I know very well, I tend to recognize them by their gait, how they move, the shape. So somebody I don't know that well cuts their hair. I met someone yesterday and she had previously very long hair, and it took me about half an hour to realise who it was. This is a collection of photographs that run simultaneously with work I did in East Asia, which was a travelogue celebrating a chap called James Holman, who was 19th century. He was known as the blind traveller, and he kind of travelled around the world. Right? He wasn't trying to reenact his journeys, because he went by sailing ship, and that's not quite possible or affordable. But it was basically following that theme, but by documenting the shadow. These works I don't give, when they're the prints, I don't give them titles, they're just image numbers, because I think that's 3967. But if you put a title on that bit, which is Man with a Monkey in Southern Laos, then it completely changes its those that are encountering it take on it. So I like the idea with shadows, and I'll show you a clip of some film. It's thinking outside the frame. So you're presented with something, but by being presented, I hope, one is looking at what is this? What am I looking at? What's outside it? And with the film, what I did was use very high quality, if I may say so, but we spent a lot of money on microphones, very high quality ambient sound, and took the colour out of the shadow. So the film, which I'll show you quickly a little bit, 2 minutes. Now again, this is an example of tightening. This is a substation in northern Thailand. Now that had exploded the night before. So if I'd said something about an exploded substation, then that would have, again, very different. And this is a still from the film, which I'll show you a couple of minutes, which is a travelogue through Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, which we didn't quite get as much as we'd like to, because my mother died during the filming, and I had to cut that short. And that's still filmed. Another series of work we did on the shadow was this is in 2009 in Bihar in India, and I got greedy and also managed to get some funding from the university to do the project. And this was to get the biggest shadow, which is a total solar eclipse, and the longest one for about, I think it's about 200 years before we get another one that long. It's about 6 minutes in totality, which was remarkable. So I thought, if we can get the biggest shadow, then get it. With this film, we set up the cameras to, it was a bit of a disaster. We had 3 cameras and 2 microphones. Everything started to break quite 10 minutes before things just went wrong. So if we could just go to the, just on this note of technical things, doing the interviews for Camden and for Spike Island, I had embedded sounds and video into the PowerPoint, tested them on my machine, tested them on friends' machines, tested them on a college machine. When I got to the venues, both occasions didn't work. So PowerPoint is a particularly sticky situation. If you want to embed sounds and images, I'd be very careful. But it's the nature of technical bits. There's the what hole. So it's not reading that. So maybe there's a piece of, there's a journey after. It's not fun. Now, as I said, the first project, the Cambodia, Laos, Thailand project, had to be cut short because my mother died. And this is a film I made the day after the funeral when I was taking a train journey, which I took as a child very often, and it's just filming the reflection of the table. I deliberately took the audio out of this because the noise of the train and the noise of the announcements and the noise of the chatter is a little distracting, but is of a much longer journey. I can't remember how many minutes it is, but for this purpose, it's a bit too long. If we could play the sunrise. And this is the beginning of the sunrise to the eclipse. The eclipse happens shortly after the sunrise. Again, these are all available on my website if you want to touch yourself with longer versions. The bell sound, and maybe you could hear the monks, that was from a local Thai monastery. Gaya, where we filmed this, is a sort of very, very big Buddhist centre in India, where the Buddha allegedly was in line behind the tree. So you have monasteries from lots and lots of different countries, Sri Lankans, Thai, Cambodians, Burmese, and many others. So the sound of that bell was the call to them do their morning chanting. So we used those sounds from the area around where we were filming. The kids on the day were they'd watched us kind of rehearse it for about 4 or 5 days before, and they behaved fantastically well. And then on the day of the eclipse, they just went bananas and made our lives pretty difficult. Also, I should credit that all the film work I make is with a chap called Alex Marshall, who's a filmmaker and works at the Curzon Silver as well, which has been quite lucky because we've been able to show things there at a large scale. But the eclipse, what was really fascinating, apart from being stunned by this shadow just coming racing towards you, was the looking overhead and the stars come out. Literally when they've switched on, faded up very quickly. Also the insect sounds, which you can't hear. It needs quite high-res either headphones or cinema audio, but the insects, different insects started to cheep, which was really noticeable. It's something that with audio, if you know the sounds of insects, you can't be defrauded. It's a bit like people that know trains or motorcycles. If you play them on audio, you're caught out. So can we go back to that? So I make a lot of bells, objects from bell metal, which is the European alloy that the church bells come from. Also, I feel like to film them. And there's a bell here, which are cast as background. Now, the bells are really culturally are announcers of events, be it on a ship for time, but also churches for announcing funerals, weddings, deaths, Easter's, Christmas celebrations, and also in East Asia, this is similar connotation with bells and marking of time and marking of events, and marking of wishes. That slide actually is a large Japanese bell in Gaia, which we filmed, and it's a film of that outside. And this is a Tibetan prayer wheel, which you turn by walking around, and it has two bells striking. Again, that's available to listen to. This is a Sri Lankan monastery. Again, bells announcing the calls to chants. Next. I'm also really interested in confining the gallery or museum convention, not touching anything. I really like people who touch stuff. Because it's an unusual thing to do. Occasionally it does go wrong, and they just over-touch it and break it. But these are two pieces I made for Cape Farewell, which is an organisation that looks into particularly the Greenland ice sheet and the oceanography, different issues of climate change. But what I did was, with all of these two bells and the stands that they're in from scrap material, I upcycled 9mm bullet shells, which I managed to go out from the police. And the timbers were bits of railway sleepers that were about to go to somebody's wood-burning stove, or get chopped up to go to a wood-burning stove, and I'll rescue those. Now the thing with, again, it's another East Asian business, is that sort of swords into plowshares. Certainly in Laos and Vietnam, Cambodia, they make buildings from unexploded ordnance. Well, they take explosives out first, obviously. But and in temples you'll see flower pots from cluster bombs or from water shells. So it's that thing of taking something really ugly and harmful and turning it into something certainly not harmful and quite beautiful. And this is another piece I did for Cape Farewell, which is a cast bell from some of you might be old enough to remember a fire engine, and manually run bell. And that's this. I took a cast of that and cast one in ice, so it's a film of the bell melting in context with the Greenland ice sheet. That's just halfway through its next. Oh yes, this is the bell at Millbank in Chelsea. It's quite a lot bigger than it looks. It weighs about 65 kilos. And it's a rescued ship's bell that I reconditioned and recast the inside for a clapper. Next, again, that's used as as an event space, so it's used as a kind of a way to round up people for if they rent a place for weddings or make speeches. And this one's about profile for a piece that I did in the next one. And when you spin that, it becomes, with a lot of exposure, it appears to have the full makeup of the bell. And next. And this was for a piece that it's at Chelsea. Now, this piece is called Some Cuts Resonate, and it was a kind of a take on arts and education cuts. So you can't quite afford a whole one, but if you spin one really quickly, reflect the flow and fall. So this is just a process of it. It was made at Castle at Whitechapel, Bell Foundry, and that's an open load casting, which I seem to be the only person who does because it's a really cheap way of doing things. You make the clay, which is horse manure, clay, and sand and a bit of goat hair, and it's initially mixed up and it dries. Next. And that's pouring into that space. And so as long as it's level, it's dead flat. So all you're doing is heating up hot metal, bowing it in, and letting it go cold. And that's it. Whereas a two-part mold would be extremely good. Be about 10 times the price to make. And this is it on the site, and there's some text on it. And the idea was that it's interactive, but it reflects some notions of kind of flora and fauna, things that were very common when I was a kid, but are no longer, or in some cases, at risk certainly, if not endangered. And also, if you remember the Trumpton Fire Station, for the older viewers that maybe don't want to whack it like the kids do, which should, the words only on the bell kind of reflected the rhythm of that, and it's elm, thrush, butterfly, bee, starling, sparrow, ash, pew, wine, blue, cuthbert, dimple, crow. A few people got that. And the next. Again. That's the Chelsea one. I make a lot of singing bowls. Again, it's an Asian thing, but I make them casting from bell bronze, so they ching a lot better than the Himalayan versions. And this was an exhibition I had at Chelsea Space, which is a summer window, so people could only look through them, they couldn't touch them, they couldn't hear them. So again, it was that notion of thinking about the piece rather than a response to the visual, or having the opportunity to engage. And this was a bowl for commission. I've made a few dozen of these, even if they're a series, I never make two the same, so even if they're identical patterns, they sound different. Another lot of work. This was one of my first bronzes, bell bronze pieces, and that's basically a life-size copy of my shadow. I didn't quite know what to do about where to cut it off, so I made it look like a really expensive coat hanger. And the notion that came from this work was I was reading a Derrida book about he's talking about the blind. It's about blindness, but he's talking about a Van Eyck painting, and the transcription or the translation of the text was so bad that it didn't make sense. But he says about the Van Eyck painting about Christ healing the blind man, and he describes the blind man. As if a blind Narcissus was inventing his own mirror, where the blind man's pointing at himself, asking Christ to heal him. I thought that's a really interesting thing. How do you how do you do that visually? So this is how I get into bell bronze. And so also through that about that time, a few other bits and pieces happening. Obviously, death of my mother. My partner was diagnosed with cancer and subsequently died. So I was taking objects from personal history. This was her radiation mask. Again, these can be struck and run. This is a sketch of my teddy bear, again open cast, which you can see in the job lecture. And again, school rulers and contents of other people's pencil cases. So it was a case of taking lots of objects from personal history. I frying pan as a kid when I used to cook after school. And this is a boat that I buried in 1969, I have to admit, but my mother dug it up in, I think, 1998 or something like that. So it was buried in the garden. It's a very small boat, but it's very cute. Again, it rings. But that work was, it's kind of a way of killing two birds with one stone. So going through a grieving process, but in a productive way. Another lot of things I make with bell bronze, and again they all ring. And these paintings, they're basically topographical landscapes of Iceland, which are poured in the same way, but I let the metal oxidize, just let it go cold. So yeah, the idea from this came from a Google Earth photograph that I zoomed into, and this was the first one that I did, and I couldn't tell the difference between it and Google Earth. So I had to ask people which is the Google Earth and which is it's quite a lucky event. But every time you make one of these, you can't tell what's going to happen. And slow down the oxidization, which is the bumpier bits, can reduce that, but you've no idea what's going to happen because depending on the climate on the day, the moisture in the air, the heat or the temperature of the sand, the temperature of the metal, it's completely random. Okay, and then I like these are little gas holes you see in the center of the image. There's a hole in it, and those are little gas holes where the oil sand is trying to escape. The gas from the oil sand is trying to escape. But I quite like that because it is very much how volcanic landscapes are formed, and in Iceland, which I've not yet been to. The geysers and the open lava flows. Discovered myself, I forgot. This was a piece commissioned from Hermes, the people who make posh scarves and handbags. So because they were paying for it, I really love the material and high quality material, like a bit poncy, but because they were paying for it, I was able to make this out of mahogany. And it's a kind of the theme of this work, this show, was the horse, because the Hermes say their first customer was the horse because they were saddle makers. So this is a kind of cross between a huge horse and the vaulting horse, as I remembered as a kid. So if I stand under it and I'm sort of over 6 feet tall, I can, my head is below that, the top of my head is below the underside of it. So it was that kind of proportion of a vaulting horse when you're a very small kid, but it also had an allusion to the figure of a horse. And this This is a piece of work that I kind of love it and I hate it because I was asked by it was Merton Borough Council and a property developer as a 104 public commission to make a piece, and the reason why I was selected was to make something audio. The developer and the council went bananas, no sound, absolutely under no circumstances, so they got a bit of architectural furniture. And the brief was to make something about the River Mondo, which is a chalk stream that runs from kind of Croydon Way and runs into the Thames and back. So a beautiful river if you've walked along it. So they got their architectural furniture, this is about 2.5 metre high oak water wheel made out of railway, basically chopped up railway sleepers. So in some ways, I kind of find that architectural furniture I also quite like it because it's nice to watch kids climbing around and this is a private commission for a doctor who wanted something to do with him and asked me really loose brief, something about me and my mother. So it was like about him and his mum. I stopped painting about 12 years ago for obvious reasons, and I'm drawing, and I became scared of it, absolutely terrified. And so in the last year I started painting again. I did some with Spike, but this one and the next, these are direct canvases, bronze cast canvases, which are always showing back way up. I just call them silent paintings. I'd like to do more of these paintings. The last year and a half I've been going to Burma and working in a foundry there. It has its political issues and its sectarian issues, but an absolutely amazing country and a wonderful place to work. People are indescribably generous and welcoming. And this is the kind of most famous monument, which is the gigantic rock that just sits on the next one. Yeah, you can see it's just teetering on the air, and it's in an earthquake-prone region, so how it stay there. They say that there's a Buddha hair on the top, keeps it there, but it is remarkable when you're about 1 kilometre in the air. You can see in the background, it's a long way up. It takes about a day to walk it. And this is some singing bowls. I took some metal. I'm trying for them to learn things from me as much as I get from them, because the technologies they're still using are medieval. So I bring them things like, when I first went to visit, there were people working with huge statues, and there were little mirrors on the statue, and I go, what's the mirror for? Well, so you can get the bits of metal out of his eye quickly. Which is a barn. So I bought them boxes of safety goggles the next time I went back, and ear defenders and gloves. But on the second day, the owner of the foundry already had the little metal in his eye, but he did say that the goggles were too good to wear, so it's tricky to next. Yeah, there's that clip of there's a before. I do try and bring the PPE, the personal protection equipment, anytime I go, but they are reluctant to wear it. Now, this is the open pore, or pore. You might need to check it. see everybody's in flip-flops. We would be in steely boots with gaiters, all sorts of facial protection, leather coats, aprons. But so that's taken it down. So we'd be basically just making the mould and paying the foundry to redo it. The monk that commissioned it is furious. The people that paid for it, the donors, are absolutely furious, and consequently this family foundry has a really bad reputation. So the notion is to kill one of the birds with one stone and reinstate their reputation, get the monastery to have a bell that works, and for the donors to have their name on a bell that rings. So that's the future. So the Spike Island residency, I mean, the way I approached it is very much a methodology. Again, going to a new city, not being able to see very well, not knowing it particularly well. I had been there a number of times when I worked in theatre, which is in a previous life. But I discovered as soon as I got there, I didn't really know my way around, and it was very difficult to navigate. So, next one. What I did was embark on a load of different things. Painting project, bronze casting project, an education project that involved kids from a group associated with Spike Island, some ceramics work, and some work with stone that I wanted to do. Now the reason for doing that was to, apart from being a bit geeky and loving materials and loving processes, it was a really good way of getting to know a lot of people, because at Spike Island there were over 100 artists there. So they would say, oh, I'm working with this or I'm doing that, I'll go and talk to someone, so I'll go and speak to him, she does that, he does that. So it was a way of really quickly getting to know a lot of people. The first thing I did was to build there's 2 easels, which hopefully have stayed in this space for working on painting and drawing. I'm working with a painter, which I'll come to in a minute, but so after 12 years I got back to that. And this was a wax area for making wax positives for casting. And this was a sort of shelling area. The floor is covered in plastic sheeting, so it's a very messy business. And that was the molds for the bronze. So this was all in one room in this one studio. This was another area where I was working on finishing, cleaning up stuff that I'd done in Burma before, and I'm also cleaning up the stuff that I was doing in Spike. So this is the little telly that you saw earlier. This is another cheap and cheerful open pour method. Now the kids that I work with were from a group called Rule 13, which is a Scottish kind of set up with the kids from very busy, deprived areas. They got control of their own budgets, they got space to work, and in Spike Island, I hijacked them and got them to make their own drawings, which they were delighted about. It was really, in fact, that is a talk in itself. But they were overjoyed, and quite a few of us were a bit weepy looking at them. Just a recording of the bell that's in the gallery here, but taken down shapes. It's a bit like being in a Tom and Jerry episode where you're rattling around. But the reason for this is that watching kids playing as they work at Camden, and also when I had a little show at Spike Island, there was a real engagement with that making sound, and the idea that you can kind of earthquake it. So this bell is a maquette of a 1 to 7 maquette of a proposal for the future. This is the series of work I did with Slate, some of you can see around the corner. And the notion was that I'm the first person in my lineage, family lineage, or first generation, to learn to write on paper and draw on paper, and my grandmother and so on and so on, use Slate. So I wanted to explore that. I tried to draw like a kid and couldn't, so I hijacked one of the sculptures from Spike Island's 5-year-old. Who's probably a much better draftsman than me, but next. No matter how much I tried, even drawing completely blindfold with the left, with the right, at an odd angle, there was never really able to achieve a constant naivety in the marks. There was always some sort of expertise in mark making creeped in. Yeah, this is comes from the alphabet. So the thing was about this business of drawing and writing. So I went down to West Wales and managed to get access to a slate line. And this is I'm not sure if it's me and Charles, but we were breaking the slate next. And then did some watercut pieces. I had a great piece of critique at Spike Island saying it's a bit B&Q, which I loved. But the notion is that there's a piece here that may be like that in gallery, but the idea is that it would be more in the narrative context in an installation in the field or a forest or in a garden. And again, to the writing, this is kind of slate dust. With as small as possible amount of resin and casting of an Apple keyboard next to me. And a big pen and pencil. And next. Now this is some of the paintings, if you just want to flip through. I'm working with this Royal Academician who's asked me to, he basically painted the paintings I want to paint. And after the first 9, he said, okay, I think we can actually start some of these and I'll finish them, whereas I was just instructing him. But we'll hope to have a show later in the year about that. And these are basically pages from this fictitious autobiography of mine. So I'm not giving too much away, but it's, the images are images that I want to try and paint. And these are still unfinished at that time. Next. Did a little bit of digital pinball photography, won't talk about that, but it was an apparatus to have an instant pinhole response. These some ceramic bells which were slip cast from terracotta, again as an experiment. Usually they were given a slip, so as the slip ran out, they got smaller. Next. These are some stoneware ones that I managed to glaze. Next. So that's another. The After text, Aaron Williamson did the residency at Spike Island, the same bursary a number of years ago, and he wrote a book which some of you may have seen, She made a lot of work about this fictitious tribe called the Afghari, which was the disabled, a tribe of disabled people that ran around Europe in the Middle Ages, in the 15th century, for a couple hundred years. So I made a lot of work as a kind of comic response to his next one. His begging tribe of itinerant disabled beggars. And so I made a singing, begging bowl. Next one. And the disabled tuning fork. Some people say it's a bit rude and gay, but I think I have to call it the disabled tuning fork. And the next. And Aaron made a star map. And this is a haptic star chart that rings. And the next. Dowsing rods, and the next one. Dowsing pendulums. The Afghani were a meteor, kind of very keen meteors. But it's too long a story to go into. My response was that they weren't.